Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have an exciting product to share with you from Tech Wrap Craft. They have new cold color changing vinyl. This vinyl is super cool for crafting projects. It looks white or light at room temperature, but when it gets chilled below 59 degrees Fahrenheit, it will turn colors. The colors are all labeled on the packaging, and I'm just grabbing the rolls that I'm going to be using in this video. This vinyl is super fun for summer projects. You can do personalized gifts, party favors, or just on regular glassware. And just a tip, when you're taking the packaging off, make sure you label the color of the vinyl. I took all the packaging off and then realized I didn't know what any of the colors were. Thankfully, I was filming it so I could go back and see on the camera what color went with each roll. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to personalize a 16-ounce glass can using this vinyl. I purchased these from Amazon and they were a really good price. I'll make sure I link it down in my description box. I'm going to be doing a full wrap around all three of these, so I needed to measure it. For the height, it was around 5.5 inches. Then for the width, I just took my measuring tape and put it around the cup, and it was 9.75 inches. Now I'm in Cricut Design Space and I'm going to upload my 3 designs. I'll click on upload. I already have all of these in Cricut Design Space. It all came in one bundle, which was a really great bundle. I can leave a link for that down in my description box. I'll upload 3 of these. It pulls it in kind of big, so I'm just going to make these smaller so it's easier to see. And I think I'm actually just going to give an example of just one because the other 2 are very similar. I think I'll do the strawberry one for an example. Sometimes there's a lot going on with these, and what helps me the most is going over to my layers panel. There's this little carrot thing here, and I'll click on it, and then you can see tons of other groupings in this. So what I like to do is just go up and hit ungroup, and then I kind of like to see what's in the other groups. So this one group of this pink strawberry has the green leaf and the pink strawberry, which is kind of a pain that they grouped it together because they're 2 different colors. So now I need to go in and ungroup all of these. Those are all the pink ones, and I'm assuming the red ones are the exact same. Let me click on it, and as you can see, within this group, there is the red strawberry and the green part of it. So I have to go in and ungroup all of these as well. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I need to attach all the like colors together. So I'm going to need to attach all the green together, all the red, and all the pink. Now that's all the strawberries. It looks like all of the hearts are their own layers, so I don't have to do anything with those, which is super nice. Now I have all these different layers, everything is ungrouped. The next step is to attach all the same colors together. I'll just start with the green. I'll click on it, and the easiest way to do this is hit shift on your keyboard, then go down to the next one and select it in the layers panel. It gets kind of hard when you're trying to select it over here. So I'm just going to hit shift on my keyboard and select all of the green pieces. And one annoying thing is when I hit it, it brings it back to the top. So I don't know why it does that, but it is super annoying. Okay, I have all of the greens selected over here. Then I'll come down to the bottom and I'll select attach. Now you can see when I move it over, all of the green is attached. I'm just going to hit undo since I moved that out of the way. And I am going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to do the pink strawberries. It gets a little bit easier when it has all that green out of the way. And I also need to attach the pink hearts since I'm attaching all the same colors together. I'll come down and select attach. And lastly, I need to attach all the red together. So you can see I have 3 different attachments. And another thing that I like to do is I like to label these. This looks like it is the red color. And since this is my strawberry image, I'm going to double click and attach, and I'm going to type in red strawberries. And it just makes it a lot easier looking in the layers panel when everything is labeled for me. That's just my personality. I like to have things labeled, and part of the reason why I got a Cricut to begin with is to label everything. In this last one, I'm going to type in strawberry leaves. Okay, now that I have that done, I am going to go in and do the other two, and it's the exact same process. Okay, I have both of these done. You can see that I've labeled these as well, but I do want to make sure I'm using the same color greens and pinks. So I want all of the hearts to be pink, and I want to use the same vinyl. I only have one pink cold color changing vinyl, and also for the green, I have 3 separate greens here, and I need to make sure they're all the same color so that they show up all on the same mat. To easily do that, I'm going to click on Color Sync, and I am just going to slide the green into here. Here I have hearts that are peach, and I want them to be pink. Since I have the hearts and peaches here, I can't just drag this whole thing over. So it's also pretty quick just to go in here since I already have it attached and just switch it to pink. I also want to switch my lemon hearts to pink. Also, here's another great example of why I like labeling, just because I can easily find my layer without even clicking on it to see what it is. I'm going to grab a guide and make it the same size that I did for those measurements. I'll grab a square. I'll select guide for my operation, and for my width, I'm going to make it 9.75 inches. And for my height, I'm going to make it 5.5 inches. Now what I'm going to do is just size these inside of my guide. I'm going to send the guide to the back to make that easier. I'll bring this inside so that I can figure out my sizing. I'm just going to make it fit inside of this guide. I also like to make sure that it's pretty close to both edges, just because if it's not, there will be a gap there. I don't know what happened, the green's a little off, but that's okay. I think it must have gotten moved, but that looks good for the size. Now I'm just gonna do the same thing for the other two. Okay, they're around 9.5 inches. They're just a little bit bigger than that, so that looks good. Now I'm ready to click make and go over to the make it screen. It's going to separate it by color. It automatically chooses the 12 by 24 inch material size, but I actually am going to use that for the green. So I'm just going to keep that for all of these and use my 12 by 24 inch mat. This last color, I'm not going to be using the cold color changing vinyl, so I'll just use a different setting when I get to that. I'll hit continue. For my cut setting, I'm going to select vinyl, and for the red, I'll be using holographic vinyl. I usually throw the whole roll of vinyl onto my mat, but this vinyl has a protective sheet over it, so it's a lot easier to cut it down first. I cut it down to about 5.5 inches. I love that ruler that comes out of the paper cutter. It is so helpful. Then I use my brayer tool to press the vinyl into the mat. After that, I just load it into the Cricut machine and it will cut out my design. I remove the vinyl by just bending my mat backwards. Then I go on to my next color. The next color is yellow, and like I said, just make sure it's labeled so you know which vinyl is yellow. My next two colors are green and pink, and they are longer. That's why I'm using the 12 by 24 inch mat, and here I'm just measuring it again. My last color is red, and I'm using the Mirror Chrome Red. I didn't have any of the cold color changing vinyl in this color, but I thought it'd be fun anyways to have 2 different vinyl sheets on one glass can and see how it looks. Here I'm weeding out all my vinyl. I probably should have pressed more for the cut pressure because it weeded okay, but there were some pieces that were just a little bit tricky to weed. Also, my fine point blade, it's getting a little bit dull, so I think that's part of the problem as well. But overall, I think if you go with the vinyl setting, it would be a good setting to use. I also highly recommend a pen tool. It makes your weeding life so much easier, especially look at these strawberries. There's tiny little pieces and the pen tool can just get those out really quickly. My next step is to layer the vinyl, and look at it on the table. It's difficult to see, but when I put it on my light box, look how you can see it so much easier. So I like to use this sometimes when I'm layering. When I'm layering, I like to have a base layer, and for this I'm going to use the lemons as my base layer. For my next step, I add transfer tape to one of the sheets, and you can choose either one. I use my squeegee tool to scrape down both the front and the back, then I remove the backing of the vinyl. I'm going to be using the parchment paper method, which is by far my favorite for layering vinyl. It is a huge game changer if you've never used it. I place my transfer sheet and vinyl onto that parchment paper. What's really cool is the vinyl doesn't stick down onto the parchment paper, so you can use that as a barrier between both vinyl sheets to line it up exactly how you want to. As you can see here, I'm just moving this around until I have the leaves and the hearts lined up exactly where I want it. This one's a little bit trickier, so what I do is I have my computer pulled up on the side and I just keep looking at my computer to make sure everything looks like it's lined up. Once it's lined up, I press down on that transfer tape so that it's pressed onto the bottom vinyl piece, that little white side, if that makes sense. And then I start removing my transfer tape. I take out the parchment paper, and I have that edge of the transfer tape stuck down to the bottom piece of the vinyl, you can see, so it stays in place. Then I start slowly placing the transfer sheet down over the hearts. I did make a little mistake here, and I always like to keep these in the video. The backing to the heart vinyl just wasn't long enough, so as you can see in the bottom left, as I picked this up, the leaves stuck to the light box because it didn't have a backing sheet to press into, if that makes sense. I was going to try to add it back onto the transfer tape, but it has to be in a very specific spot because it's going to be layering onto another sheet. So I was able to save it though. I just took these pieces off and set it on my desk, and I will just add it onto the mug later. Now I'm ready to remove the backing of the heart vinyl. So when you're layering like this, you just want to use that same transfer sheet and put everything onto it. So now I have 2 of the vinyl sheets onto one transfer sheet, and now I can add it all onto my base layer. I use the parchment paper method again and make sure everything's lined up. For me, this one was a little bit easier because I know exactly where the leaves go on the lemons. So I just made sure that all of that was lined up. I'm leaving in one more mistake. I pressed down the transfer sheet on the right, then I went to remove the parchment paper, and the transfer sheet wasn't touching that backing of the lemon vinyl at all. So you want to make sure that transfer sheet is pressed into that. So here I am just redoing it. I just scrape down the transfer tape, then I remove the backing, and I have my whole entire vinyl onto my one transfer sheet. You probably want to do this step first, but I took my rubbing alcohol and cleaned off the outside of my glass can. I'm using this cup cradle to line up my vinyl on the glass can. It is a huge game changer. If you add vinyl to any cups, mugs, tumblers, anything like that, it just makes my life so much easier. I definitely recommend it. I'll put a link in the description box. You can buy it off Amazon. Here, I'm just slowly pressing down on the vinyl. I just like to do that to try to avoid any air bubbles. If you do get air bubbles, this vinyl was pretty forgiving for getting it out. Other vinyl, not so much, but basically you can just kind of press that air bubble out. Then I remove the transfer tape. This is Tech Wrap Crafts transfer tape, and it is pretty sticky, so you want to make sure that everything is pressed down really well before you start removing it. Here, I'm just adding the leaves back on. I usually like to use my tweezers for these little pieces, but I could not find it anywhere. Now I'm ready to start on my second glass can, and for all of these, I follow the exact same process, and I'll probably speed this up since I gave kind of a detailed instruction on how to do the last one. And with this one, the same thing was going to happen, but thankfully I remembered from last time. The backing wasn't long enough, so I just basically lifted up the whole thing and turned it around so I wasn't pressing the leaves onto the light box. So I would recommend just cutting off a little bit extra of your vinyl. It's not going to waste that much vinyl, but you'll just have a bigger backing. Before removing this last backing, I got my cups ready. Last time I didn't do that, and I've already sprayed it down with rubbing alcohol and have it ready to go. Then I just remove that backing and apply it to the glass can. When the 2 transfer sheet edges meet, I just make sure that the vinyl doesn't sit on top of that one side of the transfer sheet because sometimes it's hard to pick it up. So you can see here I'm removing this piece before I press the vinyl down on the glass. But I do feel like my measurements were pretty good for this. You can see a couple little bubbles on the peach, but I was able just to rub it out with my finger pretty easily. Now I'm on to my last one, the strawberries, and I was going to use my leaf as my base layer, but when I was trying to line up the two strawberries, I found it hard to line it up really well, so I ended up adding the red strawberries to the green leaves first. I layer these onto the pink strawberries. Once it's all lined up, I just remove that parchment paper sheet again and line it all up. Then I add this to my glass can. Have you guys been making glass cans too? These have been so popular over the last maybe like couple years, I think. I've been making them for about 2 years now, and I can see why they're so popular because they're so fun. They turn out so cute, and I like to make them for every holiday, different occasions, and I like to drink my iced coffee in them. Here's a quick look at these before I add some ice water in them and see them change colors. But I think just like this, it looks so cute. I am really happy with how these turned out, and I can't wait to see how it changes colors. I'm adding some ice into each cup, and really I should have added a little bit more ice just because it took it a little bit for the colors to come in, and you'll see here. But I am just pouring water into the first one, and you can see at the very top it starts to turn colors right away, and that's because that's exactly where the ice is. But then it slowly starts to fill in the rest. But while that's doing that, I go ahead and start adding water into the next one. Here you can see kind of the same thing. It's starting to change colors, which is really fun. Now I'm just going to pour water into the last cup. This one was a little bit slower for the yellow, so I added in a little bit more ice. Here's what it looks like now that all of the color has come in, and oh my gosh, it is so pretty. How fun is this for any of your summer drinks that you're gonna put ice in? I think this is such a cool vinyl, and I love it. I would love to hear what you guys think of this vinyl. I will make sure to put links for everything that I used in today's video down in my description box. I would also love it if you subscribed if you are new to my channel, and I hope you all are having a wonderful summer.